So we're going to talk about one of the most evil people I've ever covered, Ian Huntley. Now, this is the perfect example of how the system will fail your family. They will literally give these predators access to your kids. You must fight, research every single person that your family member, your kid comes into contact with on a daily basis. Because if you put your trust in the system, this is what's going to happen. Ian Huntley, who killed the girls, worked at the St. Andrew's school they went to as the groundskeeper. But it's worse. It's so worse that he is now sitting in a prison cell, unrecognizable. His skin is melted off. His throat has been sliced. He's been stabbed while in the shower and assaulted in the worst way. Yet what makes this such an evil crime is not just the death of the two little beautiful girls and what he did to them. It's the failure of the school. So before I get into what happened to him in prison, let me break down the entire case and the failure, once again, of those in charge of protecting our kids, putting them in the most danger, as always. Go to war for your kids. Trust no one. So in 2002, those two beautiful little girls went missing from their St. Andrew's school. Now, they were both wearing matching David Beckham, the soccer player, outfits, and it was a small town called Solholm in England. It was considered a very safe place. Everybody knows everybody, but as we know, those can be the most dangerous places. Look at Richard Allen and so many others that took advantage of these close-knit communities and hid in plain sight. But this motherfucker, he takes hiding in plain sight to a whole different level. How I told you he was the groundskeeper at the school. And guess what? He decided to do multiple interviews about the two missing girls. He was getting off on
Ian Huntley
Look
here
at
is a
this one.
familiar figure. Evening, Ian. You're the school caretaker. The girls, Jessica and Holly, would know
As you
you,
can see,
and they saw you on the
he
front
was
doorstep.
loving it.
What went on?
He couldn't wait to just get off on how he got away with the perfect crime, did the most disgusting, heinous, demonic, cowardly act imaginable, and look at him acting like he's the victim. But hold on. Where I'm from, if you're the last person to see the victim, they're going to do a background check. They're going to want to know everything about you, your alibi. So what they did was they got his alibi. And guess who it was from? Maxine, who also gets convicted and only does 3 years for helping give a false alibi. But you want to know how sick this one is? She knew what happened. She knew about his past. She knew what he did to those girls. And she also worked at the school as a teacher. She wasn't able to keep her job. And look at this interview where she talks about one of the little girls that were missing and eventually found dead, wrote her a poem about how much they love and will miss her. Knowing what her husband just done, knowing how he's on the interviews, she reads the poem on air.
Holly gave me on the last day of tears, gave me this with a poem on the inside,
But it
saying
gets worse.
to a special teaching assistant, really, and we'll miss her a lot and we'll see her in the future. And that's the kind of girl she was. She was just lovely.
Nobody
really lovely.
Really did anything but get a little alibi. She covered for him, and they kept it moving, looking, pleading. And eventually, this piece of shit Ian did so many interviews with the news, just loving it. Just looking at it like, wow, I got away with it. I'm right here hiding in plain sight. And then all of a sudden, they realized this piece of shit moved about 2.5 hours, 3 hours down there to get away from his past. Now, not only to get away from his past, listen to what his past was. This man was working at the school, and they call it a failure. The Solholm case exposes serious failings with the vetting system. No. This is a man working with children. And social services had investigated 4 relationships between Huntley and schoolgirls, one only 13, an alleged incident, assault on an 11-year-old girl. Oh, but as always, it gets worse. Though Ian Huntley had no convictions for sex offenses, he had been reported to the police from his native Humberside on 6 occasions over sexual assaults and sexual relationships with underage girls. And they go on to talk some more bullshit about how they have a vetting system to stop people who may pose a threat to children from getting jobs at school. And this is why convicts go after piece of shit motherfuckers like this. And this is why so many convicts have that rage inside of them and go after them relentlessly, not caring about the consequences, because they've been just destroyed by the system that's designed to protect the children. Imagine your kids are killed by a man that has been investigated on numerous times for multiple sexual relationships, assaults and rapes and domestic violence, and he's working as the groundskeeper at the school, and your kids go missing, and this guy's doing interviews and nobody knows anything. When he got his throat cut in the healthcare unit at the Franklin prison, it was by the same guy that killed this guy, Colin Hatch, who was strangled to death for just the most heinous crimes on kids imaginable. We'll cover that story in the next video. And imagine, DCF, Child Protective Services, they knew he was in a relationship with a 15-year-old girl. They came to the house to check, and the girl Emma just lied, later admitting the truth. And he just drove 3 hours to a school and got the job. Like I always tell you guys, the schools, the agencies, the police, they will put your kids in more harm than anything. That's why convicts, parents, family members, they take these motherfuckers out. Just imagine them. They don't do anything until they have to do something. Police and home office sources accept that under the new system, Huntley would probably still have slipped through the net. What the fuck? 2 beautiful little girls were murdered and the most horrific thing happened to him, and they're saying he would still slip through the cracks because he didn't have a conviction? Imagine that. You're allowed to work with little children after having 11 investigations of rape and domestic violence and just the worst of the worst. And because some of them never were convictions, nobody even seen it, the arrests, the investigation, the social services that did their investigation. Look at this. Even if the social services had linked the 5 cases, which they did not, there's no direct mechanism for passing such details on to employers, such as Soham Village College. Now, we have a clear understanding of what the fuck is going on in this world. Do not rely on anybody, any systems, anything to protect your children. They won't do anything until they're forced to do anything. They don't give a fuck. They put our kids in danger. And if we go and protect them and tell the cops and show evidence, 9 times out of 10, well, he wasn't convicted. There's nothing we can do. When they say, our hands are tied, you snap, and you need to protect your children. You cannot allow this to go on. And you end up taking out a chomo, or you end up doing anything to protect your child like anybody would. And you end up getting more time than anybody that hurts children. Look what they're doing at Cain Velasquez. Or convicts are in there and they get tired. They know what the system does. They know what these motherfuckers will do when they get out. So that's why you see this. The Soham killer, Ian Huntley, unrecognizable. One tried to take him out by cutting his throat open in the healthcare unit, leaving an entire gaping wound from his neck all the way to his ear. But before this second prison bid to kill Ian, and he got his throat slit, a few years prior, he was hit with boiling water with Vaseline all over his face, melted his skin, and he's also tried to kill himself multiple times. They say his face looks just like Freddy Krueger, but it will never take the pain away. The school, social services, they're all to blame here. Of course, this piece of shit, he'll get hit up, tortured, and suffer for the rest of his life. But how come none of these other people and these agencies are held accountable? The officers, the schools, the DCF, they all put those kids in harm's way. His wife only getting 3 years, and she helped him get away with it and did that video with that poem mocking that family. We must always protect our kids.
How do we know they were
Trust
here
no
at
one.
6:50?
Stay out.
Well, we have
Stay
an
free.
eyewitness.
Us.
Ian Huntley here is a familiar figure. Evening, Ian.